Hey, it's Dave Wyman. Welcome to Football 101. I want to talk about the Jacksonville loss for the Seahawks, dropping them to 8-5. And I thought a lot of it was after a while, as the game went on, you end up there's just too much attrition. So Chris Taylor, who's the spotter up in the booth as we're broadcasting the game, just wrote down on a piece of paper exactly what we have here at the end of the game. Sherm is out, Chancellor, Averill, now Bobby Wagner, and now KJ Wright at the end of that game. And so you had Michael Wilhoit, number 57, and DJ Alexander, number 58, who had to fill in. And actually, Wilhoit has played some middle linebacker, but he's mostly an outside guy, so a little bit of an adjustment. And then the other thing was DJ Alexander, who he loves to hit, and I love that about him, but they just didn't have that chemistry that Bobby and KJ have. They'll get it as as practice goes on, as they fill in more, but just they were forced into service. So it was difficult for those guys who actually they did a really good job. But Jacksonville had the #1 running game coming in. They pretty much hit that average with 156 yards. Leonard Fournette had 101. I thought a lot of it had to do with the linebackers and playing the run, and especially not having Bobby out there most of the game. But, Jacksonville did some pretty basic things, just sort of what we'd call an ISO play, an ISO G, where they pull a guard around, and it was pretty basic blocking. And this was a play where they had him buried down inside the 5-yard line, and they let him get out a couple of times from good field position for the defense. And it's pretty basic type of stuff. What they do is they kicked out right here. They had two tight end formation, I-backs with a big fullback in there. Bohannon, I think was his name, just a big dude. And all they did was they got a block here, and this guard came here and then came up and chipped off on Wilhoit, and he couldn't get over the top of that. And I think the main reason is because he had a hard time, just because he hasn't played middle linebacker and he's got different rules and everything. But KJ Wright comes up, and he ends up taking on the fullback right here, and there's a huge collision. And, you didn't get the backer flowing over the top. And so I've written a couple things up here, force and leverage, and that's what KJ did on that one. He came and he hit the outside of this guy. So KJ's, if you can imagine, his left arm and left leg are free. Nothing is going to get outside of him. And what he's doing is he's turning the play back in. Another way to do it is spill. And spill we talked about a little bit last year, but that would be if the blocker comes and KJ goes underneath it like that and blows the play up, so that way this guy has to end up bouncing to the outside, and because you make a pile here and then the backer flows over the top. But they were playing it with leverage, and that's where this just didn't happen because Wilhoit wasn't able to get across the block. And a lot of that, I just think if Bobby Wagner is in there, they probably have that kind of chemistry, and then they're able to get that done. But it was pretty basic stuff. And there was another play at the end of the game that they still had a chance, even though we didn't get the call of Paul Richardson being dragged to the ground, that they still had a chance. And it was in the fourth quarter, 1:50 left, and the Jags were out of field goal range. They're on about the 44-yard line, and it's 3rd and 11. They have a timeout, so if you get a stop on defense, man, you pretty much you're able to get the ball back and possibly win the game. So, and what happened was this time McDougald was over on this side, and what they did here is they just washed down this part of the line, and now the fullback comes and kicks him out. And then what they did is they pulled a guard around. And so that's the G when I say ISO G or power G. They're pulling a guard around here. So DJ Alexander comes up, and it was the same thing that kind of happened on the other side, where he tried to get like that leverage, but he got a little bit too far inside. So what happens is he gets pushed back about right there, and then here comes Michael Wilhoit. And if he would have known, hey, I'm going to come up and hit this guard, then Wilhoit would have known to get over the top and be able to get in between, because he gets kicked out here, and there's just a huge lane right here. Well, Fournette ends up finding it and getting right through there, and because DJ, just kind of hit the guard a little bit too stout, then it cut off the backside, and Wilhoit wasn't able to get there. I put down two peas in a pod. That's what my old linebacker used to say. I'm sorry, linebacker coach in Denver, that, you know, you're two guys that, you know, you come up here and then you fill on the tackle. If it's going the other way, this guy comes up and takes on the block, and he comes and makes the tackle. And these two guys working together, I love DJ Alexander. He's what we call a guard splatterer. He comes up and just nails the guard. But that's something that you don't see Bobby do a lot. He can do it, but Bobby makes tackles, and he finds a ways to avoid the contact. And DJ, you know, you got to say, he was just forced into service there. Did a really good job, but it's just not the same when you start to get here with all of these injuries here. It finally, I thought, caught up with him. So Jacksonville really just kind of coming downhill at this defense, and I wouldn't say they beat us up physically, but you know, by the time you've got 5 of your superstars out of the game, that's kind of what happens.